It's happening. Nothing?
Josh, we talked to Todd about the kind of the run-heavy game plan on Sunday, and he had made a point to say that he said you guys did everything you wanted to do. Obviously, it didn't end the way you wanted to, the execution. That might be an oversimplification, but just talk about what you like going in and why you guys went down the path you went.
Yeah, really with any game plan, we game plan the run game before we do the pass game. And so it starts with that. We want to be able to run the ball every week to be able to establish it, and then in the game, adjust as needed depending upon if the runs are hitting or if the passes are hitting. But versus that particular opponent, when teams were able to earn the right to run the ball 30 times, which we talk about, when you run it that much, you've earned the right to do that through efficient runs, getting a hat on a hat. It really takes all of 11. So we went in with the goal to do that because of their record when you're able to get that done. So we essentially played that game how we wanted to play that game, and we just didn't make enough plays in certain moments to ultimately come out with the win.
By the same token, a year ago here, you guys, I think Baker threw 5 touchdown passes. You did run it 40 times, but sometimes it's the byproduct of getting a lead and attacking, as opposed to we just want to run it 30 times, we'll win. So you know what I mean? Like what?
Right.
It's not. It's more of the result of playing well as opposed to the game plan.
Yeah, you can look at it one of two ways on coming out throwing, coming out running, see how those are hitting. I think it's tough to compare it to last season, just the nature of it was a complete year ago with who we had out there, who they had out there. But you can also look at it like that. Do you come out throwing and then you run it to be able to play off of that? But when it comes to the runs, we were looking to establish it early. I think we did a good job of that on the road in a good environment, in a really a rival game with a lot on the line. To be able to run it 30 times for somewhat like 170-some yards. We had 10 minutes in time of possession in terms of controlling the game. So, like I said, ultimately we played the game how we wanted to play it. There's definitely opportunities to push the ball down the field more and get it to the playmakers, but we just didn't make enough plays there.
Josh, you guys had the 40-yard pass to Emeka down the middle, but that was the only pass play that was longer than, I think, 13 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd made a point to say that there should have been more explosives. Why do you think there weren't more explosives?
Part of it was we can't shoot ourselves in the foot on some of these second downs that turn into 2nd and 15, which is a tough down, which then makes 3rd and 15 to be able to hit some of those shots on some of the early downs. But I've got to call a couple more of them as well to put the pressure on them. A couple plays like the Atlanta game to put the pressure on the defense, get it to the playmakers to create those explosives, to not have to go. Even though we do want to control the clock, we do want to win the time of possession, we can also have some shorter drives to be able to eliminate some of those errors.
That catch that Abuka had was his only of the game. What was Carolina doing, or were they doing anything that kind of took him out, or what you see in that aspect?
It wasn't necessarily what they were doing as much of if the first read was open and it didn't get to his side of the field. In that particular play, he was really the third read in the way they played the coverage. Mike was covered, Chris was covered, and the coverage structure allowed Mech to get behind him. So it wasn't necessarily as much of a double team element to it like we've seen from some of the teams in the past, but definitely got to try to get the ball to Mecca earlier in the game and keep him involved.
Josh, when assessing like your run game plan week to week, do you feel like you followed the notion of going with the hot hand, given Rachaad White's success on limited carries?
It's definitely week to week. I think we can adjust that in game. Rachaad had a big run up the sideline there, and then had a couple more where we didn't really go forward on the plays. But ultimately being able to get it to all these guys, especially in a game where you're trying to establish the run and run it to that amount to keep them fresh. That way one guy goes in, the next guy goes in, ultimately to spread it around and then use their abilities in different ways.
You talk about time of possession. Are you trying to protect the defense in that sense, like complementary football? I mean, was that the goal? Like, you know, we got 9 more minutes? Because
no.
Time of possession does not put points on the scoreboard.
No, it is not. Definitely not to protect the defense. It's more of, we know if we are controlling the ball, that of course they're not out there. If you're able to put together those drives, of course it does eat up time, or we know we have the ball, but never on that side of it. And then, like I said, there's still opportunities to throw it as well to have some of those drives shorter. But ultimately, when you can win the time of possession, it definitely helps.
Josh, going up against this Miami defense, we know they're fast. We know they're going to apply pressure. What adjustments need to be made on offense for success?
In terms of
Like, is there anything that you feel like needs to change just going up against Miami's defense and how quick they are?
No, they're a good outfit. You can see a similar structure to some of the teams we played this year with Weave coming from Baltimore. It really goes back to that line of defense that we saw from Coach McDaniel in Seattle. So they've got really playmakers. I mean, Brooks leading the league in tackles. You don't do that by it's not easy to do that at the end of the day, to be able to be around the football that often. You see Jack Jones making plays. He's really around the ball as well. And then really up the middle, being with Sealer for those many years in Miami, he really makes the thing go on. We talk about strain and finish, and he really hangs his hat on that. So they've got guys at every level of the defense. See if Minka plays. Minka's a hell of a player, able to play corner, safety, nickel, and you can see his speed out there. So it's a good team.
You're going back to Miami after being there in 2022 and 2023. How is that, going back there and under Mike McDaniel, what are some of the biggest things he taught you that you now apply to yourself as an offensive coordinator in this league?
Yeah, I started there in 2017, and so it was only really 2 years with Mike. But I've said in here a bunch, I would not be in this position that I'm in without Mike. And it was essentially a new coordinator every year in Miami. There was coaches getting fired essentially every year. So it was a new system, and you see a lot of different ways of calling plays, designing offenses, route running, yak ability, marrying the run and the pass game, and listening to Mike explain that and the staff that he brought in and the system he had personally brought all that together. And that was something that we really leaned on last year with Liam, trying to incorporate that here. So I would not be in this position without Mike McDaniel.
No team. Sorry, go ahead.
That's right. I know every week is different, right? You play different defense and you got to attack them, but you would agree that your best offensive players, Bucky aside, are your receivers, right? And if that's the case, I'm still trying to, because you've had so many injuries, I don't know what your identity really is. It is a week-to-week league. But primarily, if you could do what you wanted to do, would the ball be in their hands more often than not?
We still look at it as being balanced and being able to establish the run and have that play off of it, because when you can be balanced, it puts the pressure on the defense to be able to throw it or run it. It can't get too happy in this league, especially when you're going against premier interior D linemen like 95. So there's a balance that you play in that game of how much can you throw it, how much can you run it. And it's really every week on, do we want to exploit a matchup on the perimeter like we did versus Atlanta versus a backup corner, but not doing that too much because you can't just drop back all the time. I think we saw that happen a little bit in Detroit. I know I learned a lesson from that one in terms of doing it too much. So there's that balance. We got a ton of playmakers on the perimeter as well as the running backs and tight ends. So ultimately we got to be able to get them all the ball.
And is having your interior linemen are not your starters, right? So do you have to be mindful of that too, that the matchup may not be ideal there, that you've got to get the ball out of your hands quicker? Or?
It's the interior line, but it goes with every position. If we feel like going into that week, can we take advantage of their side of it, or is there something on our side of it where we need to be cognizant of a Chase Young or a Will Anderson or somebody that's coming off the edge to be able to protect it? So it's not really the O-line as much as it is everybody, and see where our advantages are or areas where we need to say, hey, we always talk about protection first, and protection first really trumps everything when it comes to the pass game plan.
No team wants to go through the stretch of losing streaks and, losing your spot in the division as well. So how do you, maintain positivity and focus on getting out of this rut?
Yeah, as much as it's not fun to lose, we know that we're in this position that last week we needed to beat Carolina and Miami. Now we got to beat Miami and Carolina. And we're not really concerned with Carolina because these are the next guys that are on the schedule. And it's a big game, and it's going to be a fun game in that environment. And we talked about a little bit last week. I think, Rick, you asked a question where when you come out to practice on a Wednesday or Thursday or whatever day it is, Merry Christmas, by the way, you don't really feel the loss from the last week just because of we're going through the next portion of the game plan. So the juice is up. Everything we want is right there. We can't keep saying that. We got to get it done. But these guys got a lot of juice. There's a lot of veteran leadership on this team. We're ready to rock.
You've ended a couple games with interceptions. I know every interception is different. What's been the commonality, if there's any, between, that's not, obviously it's a gut punch when that happens.
Yeah, it's different things. Sometimes it can be the protection. The one from the game was just unfortunate where I feel like Bake is about to scramble. He's throwing it to Mike. There's a defender right there. When people talk about the ball bouncing the wrong way, the ball bounced the wrong way. So it's not much of a coaching point when it comes to that side of it to get it done, but unfortunate, but we'll still let it rip.
Does he have to see that more in that situation just because he's not really under pressure, or it's just miscommunication?
It's just, I wouldn't even say a miscommunication as much as it is where it's that split second where is Mike going this way, Mike sees him go here, is he going back to the field? Bake might not see that he's there, so there's not a real coaching point on it. It's just it could have turned into a scramble play how Mike saw it, and then Bake is still in the pocket throwing it, so it ball bounced the wrong way on that one.
Josh, over the past 2 games, Chris Godwin, he's had 9 catches, but only averaged 5.5 yards a catch. How do you find ways to maybe utilize him to make more drive-altering plays?
Yeah, I think we can find him on a couple more routes down the field. What I think Chris has done is done an unbelievable job, especially in that game, being on the road and having a north of 50% conversion rate on third down. And a lot of that came from Chris Godwin. And on these routes that it might not look good on the stat sheet that it's a 5 or 6 yard completion, but the one he had in the low red and the timing that Baker put that on him to be able to extend that drive, I think we're on the 10 or 15 yard line, is really what embodies Chris on being in the right spot versus zones to get it done. And then he had another good one going back the other way where he's able to double up the nickel, get a conversion. That ended up leading to points. So Chris does a great job for us on third downs, and I think we can get him more involved in some of the early downs and pushing it past the sticks a little bit.
You're not going to get your linemen back necessarily inside. You're not going to get your guards aren't going to show up and start necessarily coming back. But that aside, you have your guys. Do you just think it's a matter of time? The more you guys rep it out here, the more you play in games, that we're going to see what you saw in the beginning of the season you get to use?
I do, yeah, absolutely. I have the utmost confidence, and I think you've seen that. I know we did not win the game last week, but you started to see that a little bit in Atlanta. You see the run game last week. Being able to get both of those things going, I think allows us to be a really good offense to put pressure on them on whether we're throwing it or running it. And this will really be the 3rd week of that from the season that we're in that spot, and we got a lot of confidence going to the game.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.